Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researchers Celebrity. Today we have Professor Shreyas Kumar with us as our celebrity. A brief introduction of Professor Shreyas. He has done his bachelor's from IIT Roorkee, India, and master's in computer science from Texas A&M University. In next month, he'll be graduating in master's in legal studies with cyber security policy also. Prior to moving back to England, he served on external advisory board of computer science and engineering for 4 years and worked in Silicon Valley over 18 years in engineering and cybersecurity roles at Adobe, Oracle, Uber, and various other companies. With this brief introduction, we'll welcome Professor Shreyas at the platform by saying thank you so much for taking time out for the conversation.
Thank you, Raja, for the invite. While everything else is correct, but I will not call myself a celebrity.
So let's start with this conversation. We always start that how and when you decided to become a researcher, but to give you a narrative of celebrity, at Empowering Science Foundation, we believe in breaking the barriers. One of the barriers is that, as you clearly said it out loud, that you don't consider yourself as a celebrity. The amount of work you have done and the people you have guided, the research you have helped the world with, we believe in celebrating research. So hence we came up with the name of Researcher Celebrity. So celebrating the work you have put. So now can you agree with me that you are a celebrity?
Well, I'll put it let's way that I would like to self-invite myself in your podcast in 5 years' time. Hopefully, I meet your definition by then.
Okay, fair enough. So let's start with the journey.
So is it 7th November?
7th November 2029.
2029. Yeah,
Sure.
Please note it.
Absolutely. So when you started your bachelor's in India, IIT was always a reputed place to enroll. And then the journey before that, let's start from there, that when you decided that you want to pursue the field in computer science.
Well, early in that stage, and given the importance of education in India, it's mostly the parents who end up deciding that, and hopefully now people have many options for their children, but back then it was engineering, medicine, or a few other fields. So I will not say that I decided to study at an IIT, but it was more like following a trend or a path that if you are a better student in a particular class, then all the options you are given, that whether you want to take the engineering entrance or the medical entrance or both.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that after the undergraduate degree, I had my own decision making, and then after working in the industry, I first decided to pursue higher education.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I'm a very proud US citizen,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not attracted to US as a country,
Mm-hmm.
although it's a great country, but I was attracted by the US education system.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever little that I knew
Mm-hmm.
about US education system, whatever I heard from others or seniors about the more flexible and more collaborative learning environment.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, whether you look at the university rankings 20 years ago or today, most of the top, most reputable universities in the world,
Mm-hmm.
including our own beloved Texas A&M University, those happen to be in US,
Mm-hmm.
at least in the current century.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the idea was to pursue higher education in a more stimulating environment, which provides a lot more opportunities. And of course, computer science is, while it may not be entirely absolutely true, but for most of the innovations in computer science, whether it's internet or many of those were happening in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
and early 2000. So a US university was a natural place for me to try. And to just give you an example, the inventor of C++ programming language, Dr. Bjorny Stroustrup, was a professor in our department 20 years ago. And when I came to America on my first day, first morning in the department, I entered the building and I saw Bjorny Stroustrup in front of me. And at that point, I thought, okay, wow, this is life. This is where I have arrived. And very interestingly enough, exactly 21 years, 2 months and few days later, Dr. Stroustrup, who is now a professor at some other university, was very gracious and generous to address my C++ classroom via Zoom last week. So it is the possibilities, it is the, especially about Texas A&M University, which I really liked each and every day as a master's student. And at that time, I was so much fascinated by the experience of learning or the freedom of learning that my master's degree required 32 units of classes or coursework. In the same 2 years of time, I actually took 61 units and graduated. And my 61 units included statistics, accounting, finance, marketing, management. I was just passionate for learning. And apparently those 2 years were not enough. I liked that experience. Well, I can only talk about Texas University because this was my experience, but I guess this is consistent to a top US university. That 2 decades later, I made this my full-time job, full-time profession.
So breaking this journey of becoming a student to full professor, let's take it from India to United States at the first one. You said that, yes, you met your real life celebrity in person when you moved here on
Day
the first
one.
day.
Day one.
On day one, yeah. And I'm sure that by now you have been the same for so many others, either be in industry or be in academia as you're leading your class. The one thing which you decided that when you are coming out of India, apart from the top, as you mentioned, the opportunities were there, they were elite in their class, that's why you wanted to join a Texas A&M. But now when you see over the 20 years and you moved your, from that side of the table to this side of the table, now you're teaching, delivering the same lectures, and then industry is one of the things where people actually want to go and work with. And academia is not one of the top selections for most of the humans in United States or even in India and worldwide, I can say that.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's true for many of the PhD students. Teaching is not their top goal.
So what brings back you from a person highly established in industry, respected there, and then now you, because I can say this on behalf of so many others, that spending almost 2 decades in industry, coming back to academia is absolutely not the conventional path which people travel.
You're right. So before I actually answer your question, let me briefly explain, because most of the people may not be aware of something called Professor of Practice. This job title did not exist, let's say, a decade or 2 ago. In fact, Department of Computer Science had their first Professor of Practice 5 or 6 years ago, and this job title is not very common. So this is a path created for people like me who have done something in the industry, who are a little older or established, who may not want to become, let's say, assistant professor at an entry level, despite their passion. So they created something corresponding to, let's say, the knowledge or the experience. And within Professor of Practice also, there are levels, same like Associate Professor of Practice, Full Professor of Practice. And the hiring bar is very high. They get more than 100 applications, and the person not only should have worked in the industry but should have achieved something or met some milestones of so that a university is happy to have this person, and they feel that this person will impact, inspire, transform the trajectory of the path of the students. So this job title and this path exists where somebody can be at a full professor rank directly from the industry, and a PhD degree is not required. What is required is a work experience and a significant body of work experience, whether it's through your work or what you impacted or what you build in the industry. So first of all, this opportunity existed, and even like at Texas A&M University, not every top university has this job ladder. And even if they have, there are very few openings. So in that context, at least it was possible for me to make the transaction. But now I'll give you a little deeper answer, coming back to exact answer, that why I became a full-time professor, although having a very interesting and progressing industry experience. So I'll start with two parts. One is our Indian culture upbringing, where teacher and teaching have a very high value. And when you are growing up in a place or a society where something is very important, that stays with you. The second thing is both sides of my grandfathers were teachers.
Oh, nice.
My grandfather was a school teacher and principal, and my maternal grandfather was a professor, university professor of Hindi.
Oh, nice.
So all those things impact you early, and then when I came to Texas A&M University for my master's degree, at that time the only way to become a professor was a PhD, invest 6 more years, as it's common in computer science. So that was not a very realistic option for me at that time, but I was always passionate about teaching. So while working for the next 18 years full-time in California, one day I got, and that word is not associated with an academic job, but I got headhunted by San Jose State University to teach a cybersecurity course at a graduate level. And I had no time to teach. I was an Uber employee at that time. So I had almost like a 16-hour per day kind of job. And to be fair to Uber, because this is getting recorded, they didn't ask me to work 16 hours, but I worked 16 hours.
We call them workaholics.
Yeah, yes, you can, you can say that. So just because it was a teaching opportunity at a top California university, whatever else I was doing, I accepted that job and I did it for 2 semesters. And something very interesting happened there, which was a very big factor on my future life. This is a very large university, and they had a teaching award called Best Practices in Teaching for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I would not imagine that a part-time or visiting or adjunct professor that I was, anybody can be even considered for any award. But reviews by my students was so overwhelming that in such a large university, I got the award. So after I got the award, that award put a weight on me that if my teaching, which was not my main job, which was very side job, it was more like an evening for 2 semesters, if this can make people so happy, and those students kept in touch with me, they call me, they send me LinkedIn messages, so there is some sort of fan following there. And at the back of the mind, we all like to feel appreciated, and not that I was not appreciated in the industry, but I felt that I have something very significant to give as a teacher or a professor. So after that, when and then actually when I became the board member of Computer Science Department, Texas A&M University, although that was mostly during COVID or post-COVID, but that those meetings were actually in person,
Mhm.
never on Zoom. That means that after a gap of 15 years, I started in person visiting Texas A&M University. And then I could not help myself explore anything that I could do to spend the rest of my life in Aggie land. And when the first opportunity job opening was there, competing with hundreds or more of job applicant, if I got selected, then I accepted the job, and here I am.
So this brings us to the main topic, like making the impact, inspire the next generation of researchers, of computer scientists, or data scientists. So the people who are going to bring the change, the way we look at our world currently, you are training them. And one of the things, the idea behind this Researcher Celebrity Series is acknowledging and giving them this appreciation that most of the places, like in field of research, people do talk about Nobel Prizes. When anyone gets the Nobel Prize on that day, and on every social media it's about this person got Nobel Prize. Great. Yes, that is one of the highest level of appreciation, acknowledgement you can get in field of research. But what we try to do is every single person who have given even a single minute of their life to research might or might not have done some fundamental work, but when we call research as a teamwork, that means every single experiment done in any part of this universe is contributing to something. So for a bigger picture of a puzzle, everyone is putting in their small pieces, their small shares. As you mentioned, within 2 semesters. So there was a highly established, well-reputed 18 years of experience in industry. Well, so many accolades I'm sure you might have gotten there. But this experience of training the next generation just for 2 semesters was overloaded on those 18 years. And this is the impact which we always say, that you were I will say fortunate, or considerate, because you mentioned about your grandparents being in education field. You achieved the things which you could have achieved at industry, and then now you're like, okay, now this is my time to give it back to society. Because I am not sure that 20 years ago how it was, but now we always talk about, okay, whatever we have achieved, we received the appreciation, acknowledgement from society. Now it is our time to give it back to them, and training the next generation can be one of the best things.
Sure.
Moving back to Aggieland, in less than a year, things you have experienced, and before that we'll say that in this series we always talk about the tough times people get in their research. As you mentioned that a PhD takes around 6 years, and not most of the computer scientists go that way. They just, after their bachelor's or their master's, they are happy working in industry or wherever they want to be. But even in industry, the hurdles are, I think, everywhere. Wherever you are working, you will face some hurdles.
Definitely.
Overcoming that as a challenge, and then now using those solutions to train the next generation of researchers, students, if you can share that with them.
Sure. So first of all, I'll highlight something which is common, although one perceives that industry and academia, they are very different. But I'll tell you my perspective on that. That to succeed or achieve or even produce something in industry, which is of course a teamwork, and in academia, more than anything, one needs empathy and people skills. If you have the maximum knowledge in a particular company, and if people don't want to work with you, or and if they don't like you, then they don't like their ideas. It's a
thing, yeah,
fact as per my observation. So it takes a lot of people skills to move the needle in a corporate job. Because increasingly the problems are complex. It's not that you or your team of 6 people works on that. You should be able to convince somebody with a very high decision making authority that there is something worth doing. And you need people, whether they report to you or they don't, whether you are leading a team or you are doing leadership without authority. It's mostly about people skill.
Yeah.
Similarly, back to academia, well, you can publish a paper or do a research, or all those things are great, but here is my personal take on research. Research should help somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in my case, and it will vary for what is that somebody or some entity. In my limited time here in the university full time, my every minute that I spend doing research or brainstorming ideas or what we should do in the future, I think about 3 types of people or group of people. And that's not conventional. Conventional is, okay, let's publish a paper or have a great publication and make some progress, which is great. I also do that. But my goal is that how this work or research will make a real life impact on hundreds or thousands of common people. And because my salary proudly comes from the state of Texas, so my research ideas focus on how we can make the life of Texans better. And if the same technology or process can help the life of everyone, I'm all for it. But I'm working on specific ideas for the state of Texas. My next, I'm saying in no particular order, but one big factor of what I do is the student. Now, not all students that I work with, they will end up getting a PhD and becoming a professor. In fact, half the students I work, they're undergrads, even freshmen and sophomore. But if doing a research or a project or a tiny whatever that they are doing, if they can get a small poster publication talk and they're able to add that their resume, add to their resume, and they can impress somebody in Google or Microsoft or wherever they wish to work, then for me, that's the best type of research. The research, if you look at the impact of that actual paper, let's say the paper achieves nothing, and I'm very proud of it. If that paper makes 1 or 2 students happy and it makes their job interviewer happy, and it most certainly does. And as you know, economy is little stagnant. Finding jobs and interviews, internships, it is relatively difficult these days. So any research which, and I'm happy for that research to have a great impact on society.
Yes.
But if that research has, we don't know what the impact, but if that student is inspired, and some of these students say, now I want to pursue a career in cybersecurity because we want to become like you. Actually, I had a Halloween party in my classroom, and something most unexpected happened. And you can dress up like a pirate or so many things. 3 students in my classroom, they dressed up as Professor Kumar.
Nice.
And so, I mean, if the work is inspiring the student, helping them or helping them decide a career in cybersecurity, that is the core focus. For that, I can remain in my office till midnight or whole night, and there is a steady stream of never-ending students in my office. Doors are open to whether I teach them or not, and people show up to my office.
I think this is these are the standard qualities of a great mentor, that either you teach them in official capacity or not, but the student should always have this feeling that they can approach you, they can discuss their problems for the possible solutions, and this is the impact which we were talking about, that how you inspire them to be you, and you to get to the next level, that people actually started dressing up like you also. So that is a great achievement, I'll say.
That was fun. And the third focus of my research is national security. And given what I do, All I can say that the research I do is impacting the readiness of our great nation for decades to come, and some of it is because some of that work cannot be published. Some of can get published or does get published. So I am speaking in a top cyber conflict. Cyber conflict is a slightly polite word for cyber war. So I'll be talking in a conference of cyber war, because almost every war, as you can see the wars in this recent, we can talk in terms of Q3, right? Wars of Q3 and wars of Q4, in all over the world, all those wars have a very visible cyber component. And when a country or two goes to war against each other, the traditional weapons, technically we call it kinetic aggression. Kinetic means something which you can see in the real world moving, like a tank or a missile. But these days, those traditional wars are never happening without a cyber component.
So true.
Cyber war is on. We are always at war. We are at a cyber war without having a kinetic war with a country. But there is hardly a real war in the world these days going on. For example, Russia and Ukraine. There is no real war, physical war going on without a cyber security component to it. So it's a fascinating, although you can say unfortunate or whatever, but cyber security is a very huge component of how wars will be fought in the future. And much of my research, a significant part of my research, is to make an impact on how we protect ourselves. Because before I move on from this topic, you can prepare for a physical war, or you can go to physical war against an adversary, maybe at a 1 minute notice. But cyber war, you need to prepare years or decades in advance. You just can't go to cyber war tomorrow if you want to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned about the 3 different parts of your research. So we see that there is fundamental research, there is translational research, and the way you are impacting the peers around you. So talking about the training of this young enthusiastic students who, as you mentioned, that your doors are open, they can walk in at midnight, sometimes probably. So the one thing which you try to help them as a mentor so that they can be a better citizen, a better researcher, a responsible one, because in these days, what we are also seeing, like because of the lacuna somewhere in their training, we have seen that PhDs are dropping out after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and in very sad cases, there are suicides. So the pressure which these researchers are going through, and then sometimes what happens is like it's not about the research, it is about their personal lives which take a toll when they are doing research. As you mentioned about spending 16 hours, it's like if people have families, responsibilities, they have to make this balance, and that gives us this concept of work-life balance. How you train your students, or how you, like what you suggest to our audience here, that they should maintain that balance.
Well, it's a very broad question. So I'll address the first part. That and again, this is my limited observation. And let's talk about the stress in the life of PhD students. Now, let's assume they have no personal life stress, which is not always true. But let's ignore that part of the personal life stress. Just the fact of the uncertainty of the PhD completion or publication or meeting the criteria, and the uncertainty of the job market after that, there is a very high stress that, again, I'm talking about, let's say I personally know 100 PhD students. So while what I'm saying may not be universally true, but what I see, what I observe, or what PhD students or graduate students, not only this university, I have friends in other universities. So there is a kind of a, you can say, unfair or undue pressure, because sometimes the goalpost is not clear. Compared to that, if you talk to an undergrad, if you ask them, when are you graduating? They will answer, May 2028 is the answer. Now this question itself is such an impolite or harsh question that you cannot ask this question to a PhD student, that, oh, when do you plan to graduate? So they will, I guess, become sad at the question. Right? A master student, you can ask. They say, oh, I started this fall, so I'm graduating next summer. That's a finite. So I think that's a huge part of the stress. And other part is because we all know that a vast majority of the students are on visa. And the combination of visa, OPT, funding, going back to their home country, let's say for a small trip, and then not having a US embassy appointment. All these are professional stress. This is not a personal stress, right? So all these things make overall the research life much more stressful. But also I'm happy to see that compared to 1 or 2 decades earlier, now university, or I guess most of the large universities, they have a lot more resources. Right? When I make a syllabus, there's a statement in the syllabus, wellness, and helpline, all these things. There is a suicide prevention posters in the parking lots. So I guess the university is doing a great job of at least making those resources available. Back 20 years ago, I did not think any of us even asked permission that a homework is, let's say, due tomorrow at 11:59, and I have seen that 1:59 gone away. At our time, the homework will say homework is due at 11:59 p.m. Now I see only 1:59. Homework is due at 11:59. But I see currently many students at least sending me an email, whatever is their reason, at least they feel that they can send an email, and they send an email sometimes 1 hour before the deadline. That, hey, I had this personal emergency or whatever they had, can you please extend? So at least this culture that they can ask for some extra time, or let's say they were sick, so can I arrange their midterm exam at a separate time? At least now there is a culture where students ask for it, and in my knowledge, professors are willing and receptive to that. But still, there's a lot of stress, and and there's one part of the question which I missed, so you can ask it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I would like to say to all the audience that, as Professor Shreyas mentioned, never ask a question to a PhD student that when they are graduating. And this is the reality. Because until they submit, until they defend, the day they defend and the jury says, congratulations, that is when they are graduating. So having the walks and all those things are a different one. But speaking of the stresses, as you mentioned, and this leads us to the next point of the mental health, that how a mentor should keep this reality check on the mental health of their students, because now we are in United States, we do talk it about a lot, and then in India we are getting this culture somehow bringing, at least in the elite institutes, now we have this, but we are trying to bring this to every possible educational society, be it school, college, university, everywhere. Your suggestion and guidance to the students, being a mentee, that where they should stand and how they should approach the problem.
Well, it's a broad question. So my main suggestion to the students, because I mean, I see through a close interactions or mentoring that many people struggle with many things. It could be such a simple thing as a flat tire to something very complicated in their life.
Yeah.
But even the flat tire matters, or let's say they miss the exam due to a flat tire. But again, that's a very small example. That it is a fact that this generation of the students, they struggle with a variety of stress. Stress can be academic, personal, health, and there's so many other. And although the students they are not aware of the economic cycles, they are just entering the job market. And when they submit their resume at 100 places and try to get a job interview and get rejected everywhere, then they take it personally. They think that my GPA is poor, maybe at 3.9. They think, oh, if I had a 4.0 GPA, maybe I'll get a job. They also think that they answered 7 questions out of 10. They should have studied better and answered 10 out of 10 questions. What they totally lack the understanding that this is a function of economic up and down turns and stagnant job market and companies not hiring, etc., etc. Those who have worked for 10, 20 years, they have seen those cycles. So they have a little better idea that, okay, I'm not getting a interview call because companies are not hiring. So without this perspective of a long term, how the market goes up and down, I have seen a very high stress for not getting one interview call or not getting one internship, even free or unpaid internship. And because I am in touch with students in more than one countries, the situation is the same. So my suggestion to the students is that them not getting a job or an interview is a zero correlation of their ability. I mean, if you are a computer science student at Texas A&M University, your minimum GPA is 3.75, right? And with this education, this background, this leadership, you are always a very awesome job interview candidate in normal circumstances. But these are not normal circumstances. And if you have a 3.75 GPA and you're thinking that you are very less GPA, then it's not helpful. It causes extra stress. So what I informally suggest my students that it's okay. What will happen? You will not get an internship. Suppose you don't get an internship at all. I mean, those who are financially struggling, there are other ways. Let's say they can do a non-tech job in a local HEB or that's a separate aspect. But the main purpose of the internship is academic achievement or building a resume that, hey, I did an internship in Microsoft. And so they feel that they will have better chances of a full-time job. And that, my suggestion is that you have to be creative. You have to manage it through alternative means. For example, you can look for Department of Defense opportunities because military is mostly immune to economic upturns or downturns. And given that high patriotic culture at Texas A&M University, Texas A&M University students are very highly valued by both private, public, government, and military. So looking for a military internship or looking at some non-traditional places, even being willing to do an unpaid internship, and if nothing happens, then you can start a company and be an internship founder CEO. Because one thing people love in a job interview, that how awesome you did with your failed startup. So my advice is that if you can't do anything in next summer, start a company. It takes about 2 minutes and maybe $200 to start a company in Texas or any state of USA. Start a company, make it successful in 2 months, or make it a spectacular failure. And that story that you generate or the experience that you generate So this is like one example. There can be better examples, but there are ways to usefully utilize that summer. You can go on a study abroad, and other things you can do to show to a future employer one summer later that you
have this ability to
Yes.
use
Yes.
use the alternate path for
Yes.
that. Great. So this is for the students that, as Professor Shreyas mentioned, that you don't question yourself or your abilities based on the rejections or your preparedness, because economic scenario plays a crucial role in all of these things, and having an alternative goal or the path to take, as suggested by Professor Shreyas, probably will help you to take you to your dream job or to the place where you want to be in the future. With this, we'll say thank you, Professor Shreyas, for sharing this journey, and I'm sure that now the students will be more comfortable with those rejections and will prepare themselves for their future. And for the audience, we'll say stay tuned for other episodes of Researcher Celebrities. And we always say this, that you do whatever makes you happy. If research happens be to one of those things, we are there to help you. In case you want to be in touch with our Researcher Celebrities, we can put you in connect, or you can write directly to them also. Stay tuned, and thank you, Dr. Shreyas, Professor Shreyas.
Thank you, Raja.